Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel, and if you are new to my channel, hello, my name is Gabby and welcome. And if you are new to my channel, you've never seen my face before, never watched any of my videos, here on my channel I cover true crime cases. All of the cases that I cover are more on the vintage side. They are all 20 years or older. Now if that does sound like something that would interest you, maybe go down below and hit that subscribe button and quite possibly turn on the post notifications to be notified every time that I upload, because I am here every single Sunday with a new case video. My favorite cases to cover here on my channel are ones where I get to talk directly to family members of the victim or victims, and that is the case with today's video. But before we get into the case, I have to say that today's video is sponsored, and it's sponsored by one of my favorite companies, Hunt a Killer. It is the subscription box for anyone interested in a good murder mystery. Everyone wants to be the one to solve a mystery, and Hunt a Killer lets you do just that. Whatever may interest you in the subject of true crime, whether it's the psychology of the killer who did it, or trying to figure out who did it or how they did it, this subscription box lets you take a dive into that world even more. With every monthly box delivered, you will receive high quality materials and use all the clues given to you during the series to solve the mystery in the end. Each series is 6 boxes, so for 6 months you will be on your little journey of piecing together everything from maps to handcrafted police reports to looking through high school yearbooks and even audio recordings. You get to be the detective in this storyline and ultimately catch the killer. The subscription service was crafted by some of the biggest true crime lovers, so they know exactly how to keep you on the edge of your seat each month. Also, one of the other things I absolutely adore about it is that part of the proceeds for every box go to the Cold Case Foundation to help fund cold case investigations. So while you're solving your own little fictional mystery, you're also helping solve an actual one. Thank you to Hunt a Killer for sponsoring today's video, one of my favorite companies to work with. You can use code gabulosis at checkout for 20% off. With all that being said, let's get right into the case. Last week, I received an email from a man named Jason White, and he was curious if I would cover his brother's unsolved murder here on my channel. Of course, I was all for it. Thank you, Jason, for helping me with my research and helping me put together this video. And for everybody watching, this is the case of Chad William White. Chad William White was born on June 14th, 1971 to parents Roger White and Phyllis Robison in a small town in Iowa. He only had one sibling, and that was his younger brother, Jason. Growing up, they had lived in a few tiny towns in Iowa that were all quite close to each other. Their parents had gotten a divorce very early on in their lives, and the hardships that came from that grew a stronger bond between Chad and Jason. They were forced to be independent, and they always looked out for one another. During school months, they lived with their mother and stepfather, and spent the summers in Illinois with their father. This time during the summer was always the highlight of the year for the two boys. Jason describes Chad as a typical boy from Iowa. He loved fishing, and his favorite band was AC/DC. He chewed tobacco, and he always loved fast cars. He went to automotive school, and that's what he did for a living. He was always working on cars and riding his motorcycle. Jason said he was a rebel and got in his fair share of trouble, like all of us. He definitely wasn't perfect, but he was a good person. Like I said before, Chad and Jason had kind of moved around a lot when they were growing up, but they ended up settling down in Corning, Iowa. Corning, Iowa is a city in Quincy Township of Adams County located in the southwestern portion of the state. The city is located just a little north of the intersection of US Route 34 and Iowa Highway 148. It's probably best known as the birthplace of television host Johnny Carson. It's a small town with about 1,635 people according to the 2010 census. A place where not a lot happens. A place where everyone knows each other and word gets around fast. A place not accustomed to lots of tragic crime and violence. So when something does happen, it leaves a mark on the town forever. For this town, one of those events was the murder of Chad William White. The day was Friday, May 21st of the year 1993, and at this time, Chad had a lot going on in his life. He was living with his fiancée, Dixie Kinzer, and they just had recently gotten engaged. And actually, the next day on Saturday, May 22nd, was supposed to be Dixie's bridal shower. So there was a ton of family in the area of Corning at this time because they were all in the area to help Dixie celebrate her bridal shower, and Dixie and Chad's wedding was supposed to be that summer. And at their wedding, Jason was going to be the best man. During Jason's early years in high school, he and Chad were extremely close. They used to spend a lot of time together. They used to go out partying, having a good time. But then of course, they kind of went their separate ways as Jason got a little bit older and Chad was doing his own thing. In 1993, Chad was kind of starting to settle down. He was in his early 20s. He was 21 years old. He was legally able to drink. He had his fiance that he had just recently gotten engaged to. They were living together. They were starting to plan their wedding. They were starting to plan their life together. And Jason in 1993, he was graduating high school. He had his own set of friends. He was off doing what normal high schoolers do and preparing for his life as an adult and his life out of high school. They still spent time together, they were still close, but they were going through a normal phase that a lot of siblings do who have a little bit of an age gap. When it comes to Dixie, Jason said that she was a great person as well, and he loved her like a sister. He knew her because they had worked together at a convenience store called Casey's Convenience Store, and they both worked there all throughout him attending high school. Other than people being in town for Dixie's bridal shower, they were also in town for Jason's graduation. He was going to be graduating on May 23rd, that Sunday from Corning High School. So the day that we're focusing on is May 21st, Friday. This is the day that they were kind of prepping for Saturday and Sunday. Saturday, the 22nd of May, was supposed to be Dixie's bridal shower, and then the 23rd, Sunday, is supposed to be Jason's graduation. And everybody was just extremely excited for this weekend of celebration, but none of them would be celebrating. Instead, they would be mourning. May 21st was only a day after Chad and Dixie's engagement was announced in the Adams County Free Press, the local newspaper. During that Friday, Chad and Dixie spent time riding around on the motorcycle and visited some friends before heading home. When they got home, though, someone was waiting for them. It was a town where no one locked their doors. It was a town where people trusted one another. It was a town where you didn't expect to get a few feet into your home and have your life cut short. When they got home, an unknown person walked out of Chad and Dixie's bedroom. The person shot Chad in the head while Chad was standing at the kitchen sink. Dixie screamed and she turned and ran for the door. The person shot again, this time at Dixie, but missed and hit the door frame instead. As Dixie was running out of the door, he shot again and hit her in the back. She flew out of the home and fell onto the front lawn. The shooter ran out of the front door, ran off, and has never been seen again. A neighbor who had an open window that night said that they recall hearing at least one gunshot and the sound of a woman crying, and this woman was obviously Dixie. Jason told Iowa Cold Cases it was around 11 p.m. and I had to take my girlfriend home. She lived on the same side of town as my brother, so we started in that general direction. As we were driving, one of the town of Corning's officers flew by us with his lights on. As we came over the hill to Chad's house, I noticed the cop stopped in front of his house. I pulled up behind the officer and got out. He ran out of the house with his gun drawn and around to the back. As I walked into the yard, I noticed Dixie lying on the ground in front. I knelt down next to her. She was face down, having trouble breathing, and I saw a big tear down the back of her jacket. It's kind of a blur, but I remember the ambulance showed, and I turned to the house and started up the stairs to the front door. One of the neighbors was in the doorway and wouldn't let me in. I think I knew right then that my brother was dead. I came back down the stairs and found the police officer. I asked him what happened, and all he would tell me was that they had been shot. He wouldn't tell me whether my brother was dead or not. I watched the ambulance take Dixie away, and I noticed that they didn't take my brother. After that, completely in shock, completely shaken up, not knowing what to think, not knowing what the outcome was, Jason decided to drive his girlfriend to her house to drop her off, and then he was going to drive to his aunt's house to use his aunt's phone so he could call his mother and stepfather. Think this is 1993, this is before the wide use of cell phones. He didn't just have a cellular device in his pocket where he could just call his family. So he went to his aunt's house, used her phone, called his mother, his stepfather, and then he drove back to his brother's home and waited for family to arrive. Jason was waiting for his mother and stepfather at his brother's home, of course, still just in a mindset that none of us can imagine unless we've been there ourselves. And when his mother and his stepfather got there, an officer informed them that Chad was in fact dead. Jason completely broke down at this point, and then not long after, Jason's biological father arrived at the scene, and he too was informed that Chad had been murdered by somebody who was waiting in his house with a 20 gauge shotgun. Instead of celebrating his graduation on Sunday, Jason spent his graduation asking classmates if they would be pallbearers at his brother's funeral. Everyone had so many questions that they didn't even know where to start. Other than the main one, which was who was responsible, what on earth could Chad and Dixie have done to deserve this? Were they targeted by someone they knew, or was it a random act of violence? Chad and Dixie were lower middle class. They didn't have a lot of expensive items, but nonetheless, nothing was taken from the home. Maybe the person was targeting someone else and ended up going to the wrong house. Chad had walked into the home without first turning on any lights, so possibly the shooter didn't see who he was. These are questions we still don't have answers to 27 years later. As for Dixie in today's time and even through the years, it's an event she doesn't talk about. It is hands down probably the most traumatic thing she has ever been through and ever will go through. And she doesn't remember much of the night. She doesn't remember who was responsible. She doesn't remember what they looked like. She can't really describe them. It was all just a complete blur for her. It all just happened so fast, and after the incident, Dixie had stayed in the hospital for a few days, and during this time, there was family next to her the entire time because they didn't know if the person responsible for Chad's murder was going to come back and finish the job and kill Dixie as well. So other than kind of planning a funeral and going through the emotions with that, they had to take care of Dixie and make sure that she was safe. Iowa's Department of Criminal Investigation worked alongside the Corning police to follow leads and conduct interviews. According to the Corning police chief, by August of 1993, they had interviewed at least 270 people, and they had 12 officers working on it, saying that somewhere, sometime, it will all fall together. Originally, the reward was set at $1,000, but in 1995, it was bumped up to $5,000 for anyone that comes forward with any information that leads to an arrest for the murder of Chad William White. Still, no promising leads came in. The police chief said that the most frustrating thing is that no local residents were coming forward offering up any information. When it comes to cases taking place in a small town, I'm sure all of you true crime fanatics out there can agree that there's always the same things being said. And one of the main things that is always said is that someone knows something. And I cannot agree more. I live in a small town now, and I can tell you that if Sally up the street changes her breakfast from Rice Krispies to cornflakes, everybody in the town knows about it before lunchtime. So word gets around fast. Everybody knows everybody's business. That's just how it is, and everybody talks. Jason believes that somebody in Corning, whether they're still there in today's time or not, knows what happened. Somebody knows what happened to his brother, or somebody knows who the person was who was responsible, and they just haven't come forward, and chances are they never will. No one ever really came forward in this case and helped authorities or the family kind of narrow down what path they were going to go down to help solve this case. It's kind of a cliffhanger. Everybody acts like they're a little bit ignorant towards what happened, like they have nothing to come forward and help with, and honestly I find that very hard to believe. Jason finds that hard to believe. Every single family out there that I have talked to who are family members of victims who were murdered or disappeared in a small town, they all agree. It's just almost impossible to believe that no one in the area knows of anything. I'm in no way saying it's impossible because of course maybe the person responsible just kept it to themselves. But you have to think that the person responsible left on foot. You're telling me no one saw anybody running through the night with a shotgun? You're telling me no one maybe saw somebody who got home late or walked into a convenience store late or was walking down the street late and noticed they were looking a little bit odd, looking a little disheveled. No one saw anything. No one can help even put one puzzle piece towards the entire puzzle. It's just very hard to believe. Just like with any small town though, there were tons of rumors and tons of speculations made. Jason said that one of the reasons someone may not have come forward with something small they may know is because of his own actions. About 2 months after Chad's murder, Jason was going through a lot mentally, and he was arrested for drug possession and had to do a year of probation. He occasionally smoked marijuana, and that's what he was caught for. The news of that had gotten out, and a lot of people thought that since Jason was arrested for drug possession, that possibly Chad and Dixie had some involvement in drug use, but neither of them did anything, not even smoke weed. Jason said Chad had absolutely nothing to do with his issues, but he feels like his arrest may have damaged the case in some way. That maybe someone had a tiny bit of information or possibly heard something but never came forward with it because they just figured it was another drug-related murder. Now there's probably one theory that you all are thinking about yourself, and that is that Chad and Dixie were targeted. Well, we don't know if they're exactly targeted, but they were the victims of this horrible crime. And they were the victims of this crime only right after their engagement was announced to the public. So was jealousy possibly involved? Well, there was this huge theory in this case that there was some sort of jealous love triangle going on between Chad, Dixie, and somebody else, but that theory was completely abolished by authorities within pretty much no time. It's almost like a large portion of Corning wanted to sit and gossip about the case and come up with all these theories, but no one wanted to come forward and help solve it. Chances are the person responsible was a local, and it could have been somebody that Chad's family members walked past almost every other day. You never know. It could have been somebody that went to high school with Chad and Jason. I mean, I couldn't imagine living in that town still knowing that the person responsible for your loved one's murder is probably walking free, just living their life not far from where you are at that very second. I've talked to a lot of different family members who have gone through this similar thing, and it's like every time they would leave the house, they didn't know if they were going to see their loved one's killer that day. And I can't even imagine how that must have been, going through that mentally for so long and still in today's time. Jason told nwestiowa.com in 2016, "That whole night is burned into my brain. I've told the story so many times and I remember it so clearly. It took me several years to feel safe walking into my own home. I would have to psych myself up to walk through my front door, and then I would have to check the whole house before I felt at ease. I spoke with an officer at the DCI a couple of years ago, and I learned that because they don't have the money, cold cases don't get continuously investigated. New information or clues will be investigated, but they don't actively try to solve cold cases. It's frustrating because in a town the size of Corning, someone has to know something. I can't help but think that if it had been one of the pillars of society, it would have been solved right away, but my brother was just an ordinary, average person. Somebody somewhere knows what happened. My only hope is that they come forward so we can finally put it to rest." For Jason, he feels like the shooter, the person responsible, not only took his brother Chad from him, but also took his father, because on May 27th, 1994, which was a year and a week after Chad's murder, his father took his life. Chad and Jason's father, Roger White, he had dealt with a lot of depression through the years. He had dealt with a lot of mental health issues, and Jason feels like his brother's unsolved murder was the thing that pushed his father over the edge. It was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. Jason's father and Jason's brother were extremely close, and May 21st, 1993 just feels like the day Jason lost both of them, because even though after Chad's murder, Jason's father was still alive, he was not the same after that. In today's time, the case remains cold. Jason says, "One person took two people that were so close to me and that I loved so much. I can't believe that in a town as small as Corning, Iowa, that nobody knows anything. It will haunt me for the rest of my life, or hopefully until someone is finally held responsible. But at this point, I really don't have much faith. There's no cold case department in Iowa, so the case just sits." The only thing that was really found that could be of any help was a partial fingerprint on one of the shotgun shells. That's it, and nothing has come of that. The police never even really went to Jason to interview him or talk to him in any way. They only spoke to him at the end when they told him there wasn't much else they could do to solve it. Authorities didn't really include Jason in his own brother's murder case. Like so many other cases, this case was just kind of swept under the rug, and because of that, Jason feels like there is a lot of shadiness when it comes to this case, and he has a lot of suspicions when it comes to authorities in that area and higher community members. If you yourself have any information about the murder of Chad William White, you are urged to contact the Adams County Sheriff's Department at 641-322-4444. Remember that you can stay anonymous. So that is the case of Chad William White, and right now I'm going to get into some of my final thoughts about the case. I only really put in final thoughts about cases that I have a lot to say about, or ones that kind of remind me of other cases and their cases that I've done on my channel and that my subscribers have most likely watched those videos, and I kind of want to make a little bit of a comparison between the cases and just overall my thought process while collecting all of my information for the case that we discussed in today's video. Pretty much all of the thoughts that I'm going to be saying at the end of this video, I have talked to Jason about myself. One of the main things that stands out to me about this case is the fact that there's a partial fingerprint on one of the bullet shells. I feel like that partial fingerprint could be what solves this case, and it's just a matter of authorities finally putting it through their database and trying to find a match for it, which I don't think they have done that yet. I asked Jason about it, and he said that authorities have not really included him a lot in this case. They have not really told him much about his own brother's case, which I find absolutely devastating and heartbreaking and a little bit corrupt. I feel like a family should be told pretty much all of the information in a case, especially after it goes cold. Here on my channel, because I talk to a lot of family members about these cases, it's not so cut and dry. It's not like a documentary on TV where there's a question and then we get to an answer. It's not like that. There's a lot of questions that I just don't have answers to, and the families don't either. As just a researcher, as just somebody who has looked into the case and talked to the brother myself, I look at this case and I feel like it is solvable. And I know that's a big opinion to put out there, but I feel like it is solvable, and it's just a matter of authorities or somebody with a lot of power and money really caring about the case and wanting it to be solved. I will always hand it to authorities who try to solve a case. I will always hand it to detectives who try their hardest for years and years to piece together everything. But I feel like, especially in small town murders and small town disappearances, there's just a pattern. Again, thank you, Jason, for helping me with my video. It was an honor to cover your brother's case, and I hope that it can eventually be solved, because no family deserves to go through this. If you yourself have a case that you really want me to cover here on my channel, especially if it's a case you have some direct connection to, I just recently created a new email address just for you all to send in case requests to, and it is gabulosiscaserequests@gmail.com. So email me there about the cases you have that you want me to cover here on my channel. And thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your day to listen to Chad's case, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye, guys. Also, don't forget to go check out Hunt Killer down below in the description of this video, because even if you don't want to use my code for 20% off and you just want to buy a box yourself, a portion of the earnings from every single box bought from Hunt Killer helps to go solve cold cases just like this one that we discussed in today's video. All right.